Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Live Oak Unitarian Universalist Congregation. Live Oak is a welcoming and open and inclusive community grounded in love, providing opportunities for spiritual growth for seekers of all ages and stages. We actively live our values of diversity, compassion, and justice to humanity and the earth. My name is Megan Moyer, and I'm a member of the worship ministry, and I will be the worship associate this morning. And I would like to introduce our guest speaker, Minister Carolyn Bjerke. Carolyn serves as the contract minister at the Universalist Unitarian Church of Santa Paula. And she recently completed an 18-month internship at the Unitarian Society of Santa Barbara. And previously, if that's not enough, previously served as the music director at the UU Church of Ventura for over a decade. Carolyn draws from her experience in chaplaincy, nature, and family life, weaving insights from Buddhism and social justice work. Her ministry is rooted in presence, deep listening, and a commitment to shared growth. So thank you, Carolyn, for being here with us this morning.
Our call to worship this morning is adapted and inspired by Gretchen Haley's Let Your Body Tell the Truth. Come now across traditions and practices to speak the truth of who we are in this moment. We have stumbled and we have risen. We have begun again and again and again. We have made plans and then reimagined them and sometimes let them go entirely. In this circle, we say without shame, some days we lost our way. We forgot the quiet rhythms that ground us. We have not always been our best selves. We are learning, and not always quickly, to regroup, to remember that perfection was never the point. We are here because we long to begin again, to be companions on this path of loving and becoming. We honor the cost of living awake, the ache that does not leave, the grief that sits beside us, and the fire that sometimes turns to rage. Here, let your body tell the truth. Shake free the stories that weigh you down. Breathe in what steadies you. Breathe out what you cannot carry alone. Be here with it all, with all of us, in the tension, in the unknowing, in the work that is ours to do. Come, let us worship together. I invite you now to take a moment to arrive not just in this space, but in your body. Let your feet find the ground. Let your hands rest gently. If you feel comfortable, close your eyes or soften your gaze. Begin to notice your breath. No need to change it, just notice the rise, the fall, the inhale, the exhale. With each breath, let your shoulders ease. Let your jaw soften, and let your body be held by gravity. Let this be a moment with no striving, no perfect way to be. Just breathe and belong. You may be carrying something today, worry, grief, joy, exhaustion. You do not have to put it down. You are simply invited to breathe with it. Breathe in stillness. Breathe out presence. Breathe in love. I begin with a reading, Meditation on a Grapefruit by Craig Arnold. To wake when all is possible, before the agitations of the day have gripped you, to come to the kitchen and peel a little basketball for breakfast, to tear the husk like cotton padding, a cloud of oil misting out of its pinprick pores, clean and sharp as pepper, to ease each pale pink section out of its case so carefully without breaking a single pearly cell, to slide each piece into a cold blue china bowl, the juice pooling until the whole fruit is divided from its skin, and only then to eat so sweet a discipline precisely pointless, a devout involvement of the hands and senses, a pause, a little emptiness, each year harder to live within, each year harder to live without. I have been a musician my whole life and spent a lot of time practicing. In tiny practice rooms or at home, there was the necessity to show up, gain skills, and apply them to music. I've also had the joy of being a runner through much of my life. Running has quieted my mind, giving me a chance to connect with nature on my runs, and moved me through many seasons of grief and joy. Several years ago on my path to ministry, I thought I had a decent grasp of spiritual practices and what mine were, but they weren't clearly defined, and they were often inconsistent. They became more intentional and a very formative part of my spiritual path when I started looking more deeply into defining them and noticing when and how I practiced. I took my first session of a spiritual deepening program called UU Wellspring, which is a program created by Unitarian Universalist ministers. It's an 8-month experience in a small cohort where participants explore personal beliefs, learn about our tradition, and commit to deep listening and inner work. Each session includes readings and music and shared reflection, and between meetings, we commit to a spiritual practice of our choosing. At each gathering, we check in with one another, not to judge, but to witness how it's going. Another one of the foundational elements is that each group creates their own covenant. That covenant becomes a kind of container holding trust, vulnerability, and presence. It creates a safe space for the soul to show up, as Parker Palmer says. In that early group, I struggled with identifying a practice that I could do regularly. As I went back to the group and shared that I had let my practice wane, I found it amazing and reassuring that we shared many of the same struggles. Instead of feeling like a failure and that spiritual practice just doesn't work for me, there was an encouragement to shift, try something else, and be easy on myself. We could give that grace to each other in the midst of accountability. Eventually, I began facilitating Wellspring groups. I loved watching others discover the value of consistent and meaningful spiritual practice and how it can become a source of sustenance and a touchstone to help find peace in our busy lives. When the world is on fire, literally and figuratively, spiritual practice has another important role to help sustain us in the hard times. Consistent spiritual practice becomes like an anchor in the stormy seas of life, offering grounding and strength when things fall apart. Regular practice every day, or as often as possible, gives us a tool that can be a support when things are challenging. Some would say it becomes a necessity. And as I thought more deeply about the definition of what spiritual practices are, I learned that spiritual practices are not only things to do when you have time to spare, like a retreat or merely an occasional outing, like going to a museum. They're not therapies like massage to obtain when you need it. They're all-purpose disciplines, ideally performed on a daily basis with immediate value in the moment and transformative impact over time, as their effects of mind, body, and spirit accumulate. They are not done to gain something, though they often give back. They are done for their own sake, for your soul. Through these practices of awareness, presence, and surrender, we begin to embrace our lives more fully. We learn to live with the struggle, we learn to stay open and to trust in the inherent goodness of existence that underlies even the hardest seasons. On another level, spiritual practices are specific activities we do to deepen our relationships with the sacred, with our inner life and the world around us. They help us discover and rediscover our deepest values, address our longing to connect with the divine, and they move us towards wholeness. And they enable us to become actively engaged with our inner or true self, the depth of our being. And they look different for each of us. Sure, we think of meditation, prayer, yoga, creating art, or making music, but the truth is, any act done with care, attention, and presence can be sacred. Knitting, gardening, walking the dog, chopping vegetables, sipping morning tea or coffee, cooking, writing, or keeping a gratitude journal. The list is endless. And it doesn't have to be hard, it doesn't have to be long, it doesn't have to produce anything. Some practices offer outcomes, others simply offer presence. And presence is more than enough. And no, practice does not make perfect. You will forget, you'll skip days, life will derail your best intentions. That doesn't mean you failed. Difficulties are to be expected and can be used as lessons on your journey. In my Wellspring groups, we learned that together, that our struggles weren't flaws, they were the practice. Naming them, returning, adjusting, that was the growth. The goal was never perfection, it was simply showing up. Practice is a process and it changes over time. It doesn't mean you have to have the same practice for any specific length of time. You might make a commitment to do a specific activity for years. Others serve us for a season and then gently release us. In a world so shaped by urgency, performance, and constant distraction, a practice becomes a countercultural act. It reorients us. It slows us down. It reminds us that we are more than our productivity. We are already whole. We are already enough. We just forget. A spiritual practice can be that thing that we do to help us hear our inner voice amongst all the distractions, the demands of our lives that keep us from being present and feel that sacredness in and of our lives. It helps us tune into the humanness of those around us and feel the joy and the grief of our lives. In this world where busyness, technology keeps us disconnected and numb, spiritual practice can be what helps us stay connected. And we practice all kinds of things, all the time, whether we intend to or not. Spiritual practices have always been at the heart and soul of most world's religions. Jewish writer Avram Davis observed, "We are what we practice. If we become angry a lot, then essentially we are practicing anger, and we can get quite good at it. Conversely, if we practice being joyful, then a joyful person is what we become." If that's true, then what are we rehearsing? What are we cultivating in ourselves, in our communities? And what if instead of trying to fix or overcome anything, everything, we simply practice returning, practicing tenderness, practicing showing up? As I focus on that value of spiritual practice as a way to bring more peace into our lives, I invite you to be curious and consider what your spiritual practice might be. You may have a wonderfully established one. It might be one that you do intentionally and without even having recognized it. Or this may be an opportunity to try a new one. The goal is to do it with regularity and notice what it is like without judgment. Sometimes the practice connects us to what I like to think of as the state of flow, that presence where everything falls away. Running often leads me to that state where my focus becomes super concentrated. I can be very present with my breath and my feet pounding on the earth. Sometimes ideas and feelings that were pushed aside because of the day-to-day busyness are uncovered, and I can start to hear them. Practice is about finding ways to connect to the deepest sense of ourselves. That connection cannot happen unless we are quiet, listening, and undistracted. What Quaker author Parker Palmer says about the soul is that it is like a wild animal, tough, self-sufficient, resilient, but also exceedingly shy. Let us remember that if we go crashing through the woods, screaming and yelling for the soul to come out, it will evade us all day and night. We cannot beat the bushes and yell at each other if we expect this precious inwardness to emerge. But if you are willing to go into the woods and sit quietly at the base of the tree, that wild animal will, after a few hours, reveal itself to you. And out of the corner of your eye, you will get a glimpse of what the wild preciousness we seek. And that's what the practice creates, space for the soul to appear. These are scary, tension-packed times. So much grief, so much injustice, so much noise. The ground keeps shifting beneath us. And that is precisely why we need rhythms that return us to ourselves. The first reason is personal. We need nourishment, stillness, space to breathe. The world won't give it to us. We have to create it. And the second reason is communal, because when we are grounded, we are more compassionate, more courageous, more able to meet the world with love. We need these periods of silence to counter the incessant noise. We need a barrier to life stresses, and the tension and distraction is like shoes that we wear that keep us from feeling the ground. When we take them off and walk on the earth, we feel the softness of the sand and the coolness on the ground in the shade beneath the tree. Spiritual practice is not an indulgent in turbulent times. It's a necessity to connect us to who we really are. Thich Nhat Hanh made that point with grace when he said, "The miracle is not to walk on water. The miracle is to walk on the green earth in the present moment, to appreciate the peace and the beauty that is available now. It is not a matter of faith, it is a matter of practice." So I invite you today, this week, in whatever small ways feel possible, to find your way in. It might be something new or something familiar that you hadn't named as sacred. It might be small. It might change over time. That's okay. What is calling you now? What practice might help you breathe, stay present, or remember who you are? Begin where you are. Let it be simple. Let it be gentle. Let it be yours. Let it be imperfect. And so begin. Amen. And blessed be. Please join me in prayer. As we gather in this sacred space, may we find strength in stillness. Grant us the wisdom to recognize the power of spiritual practice in our lives. May our practices become a beacon of light, guiding us through uncertainty. May we hold in our hearts all those who are experiencing pain and injustice, from the distant corners of the world to the communities in our own midst. May our prayers be a source of comfort and hope. May our actions be guided by compassion. May we trust that our small offerings matter. And as Rumi says, that the wound can become the place where the light gets in. May we, through our spiritual practices, become vessels of love and grace, bringing healing, and wholeness wherever we go. May our hearts be open to receive peace. Amen. Blessed be. May it be so.